Hello, hello, and greetings from the great state of Iowa. This is your girl Emily here. We're here with another episode. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I cannot wait to bring you this interview. But first, let's not forget to honor history with our Black Iowa fact. So, here we go. In 2020, from an article from the Des Moines Register, entertainment reporter Sierra Porter wrote an article titled 10 Iowa related Black History Month Facts You Should Know. She mentioned Harriet Curley, whom in 1946 was the first Black teacher to be employed with the Des Moines Public Schools at Perkins Elementary. Amid protests, the superintendent at the time, N.D. McCombs, noted the following about Curley. She topped the list of applicants by a wide margin. The board has had a policy in writing for years that all boys and girls get the best teachers for the money we can pay. And they are not hired based on color, creed, or nationality. So, this podcast is dedicated to Harriet Curley as she opened doors for many Black teachers, not only in Des Moines, but across the state of Iowa. All right. So that is our Black fact. I am not going to sit up here and tell you all of the things about this interview because I just want you to hear it yourself. So I'm going to play the interview. I will come back at the end for my reflection. And then I will also give you guys some teasers on the upcoming episode for next week. All right. Here we go. Okay, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get into the interview for today. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to my guest, GloRose. She's an author based here in the Des Moines area that has a passion for writing books for children and teens that encourage them to use their words and artistic abilities to express their feelings. Glow's books can be found on her website, glowrosebooks.com, and her Amazon storefront. Ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary friends, I'd like to introduce and welcome to the show, GloRose. Glow, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Emily.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to kind of just tell everybody real quick just how I met you because it was random, but it was also kind of reminiscent to the other podcast that you were on. So I have like a little small card papery business, and I'm looking at starting and doing flea markets, and I was immediately drawn to Glow's table at the flea market that was at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. She had these books. They weren't like big chapter books, but you could tell they were really colorful and intricate activity books. And they had these titles like Mom, I'm Mad, Dad, I'm Mad. And, things like that. And immediately I was like, I need to know what this is about and what she's doing. And so I'm really, really happy that I met you. I bought one of your books this past weekend at the Power Summit and can't wait to do some of those activities with my nephews. So before we get into your writing career, tell us a little bit about how you got to Iowa. So you are originally from the East Coast, Maryland, Virginia. So what was your journey to the Hawkeye State like?
So, as you stated, originally from Maryland by way of Virginia, and my family is very, very, very spread out all over the country. And I miss them constantly, but we wanted to raise our boys. I have two boys near family. So, my husband's family, who do live in Iowa, they are just, when I say very close, I mean a couple blocks away is one of my relatives.
Okay.
And we just decided to raise the boys near family. We would come to Iowa. And so I've been here for, I want to say, about 11 years now.
Okay.
And I'm still not quite acclimated to the very interesting weather.
Yeah. Do you like having 3 seasons in one day? It's fun, isn't it?
Sometimes it makes it so confusing to know what to wear.
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Yes. Especially around this time of year. It's like you have to be ready for winter in the morning, fall in the afternoon, spring, summer in the evening. Like it's just how it is.
I've been afraid to take out my spring and summer wardrobe because lo and behold, it might be cold next week.
Exactly. And I always tell people it's just like I wish it would change, or and people always ask me, well, Emily, like was it like this when you were a kid? It was worse. So
Oh,
we got
oh,
like the full 3, almost 4 months of winter when I was a kid. So
oh.
it is not like that anymore. These are very mild winters that we have here in Iowa. So since you're originally from the East Coast, what are kind of some of the biggest like differences that you've seen being here in Iowa now in comparison to the East Coast?
Some of the biggest differences is the culture.
Mm,
Honestly, living in Maryland, living in Virginia, you had Richmond, you had Washington D.C., Chantilly, Virginia. You had coastal cities, so you could go to Virginia Beach, you can go to Ocean City, Baltimore. You had a lot of major cities that gave you a lot of opportunity for cultural awareness, cultural information. Some of that is missing here in the state of Iowa, so it
mhm.
is sometimes hard to share some of this with my children. I would say that that is the biggest difference. Also, I would also say activities. Again, Virginia has huge amusement parks. Maryland is not too far away from amusement parks. And then you have, if you go down towards the south, you have South Carolina where there's Myrtle Beach. So
Yep.
sometimes travel opportunities are a little limited here in the Midwest.
Mhm.
But I'm learning a little bit about some hidden gems.
Okay. Do you want to tell me
Um,
what some of those hidden gems are? I want to know what they are. So I want to see if I
I
can
may
compare them.
I may say this incorrectly, but I believe it's is it Okoboji? Okay, I might
Yes,
say this.
Okoboji.
Okay,
Hmm.
that's one of the
Yes.
ones I have found that was a hidden gem. I have never actually been to Minneapolis before, and I got to go visit in Minneapolis, so that was
Okay.
a lot of fun.
Did you do the Mall of
Also,
America?
I did do the Mall of America.
Okay. You have to do it. Absolutely.
And then Omaha. So I've heard of Omaha, but I didn't realize it actually had as much activities as it has. So I haven't been
Hmm.
there yet, but it's on my list of places to go.
Yes.
Lastly, I want to say there's a African American museum. Is it in Davenport?
It's in Cedar Rapids. So
Cedar Rapids.
it's about an hour and a half away. And the great thing about Cedar Rapids, it is a straight shot east on Interstate 80. And then
Nice.
you just get to 380, you go right up, and I know the exit. So I used to recruit in that area, and then I have family over in Cedar Rapids myself. So
Very
yes.
cool.
Yes,
So
one of these
yes.
days, hopefully with this podcast, I want to like see if I can plan a trip for some of us to go out there. So that's something I'm gonna try and work on and see how because I've never been there myself.
Oh,
So
really?
yes, nope, never been.
That
So
that sounds like it would be fun. Like I said, there's some hidden gems I'm learning that are
hmm.
out here. So I'm curious to start visiting. Oh, and there's a riverboat tour too. Maybe that's the one
Yeah,
I was thinking of in Davenport.
yeah. I think
Okay.
I think it like starts in Davenport and it goes all the way down to like Burlington or something like that. I have
Yeah.
heard about it. It's just me and large bodies of water. I can't.
No,
So I just had an experience, went to Myrtle Beach when I was a kid, got knocked over by a wave. Me and big bodies of water, we just don't get along. So,
I understand. I understand.
so I will tell you though,
Completely.
a native Iowan speaking to a newer Iowan within the last 10 years, you got to hit up. I don't know if you've done it yet. You have to go to Adventureland because it's a staple.
I've been there.
Okay, good. And I'm assuming you've been to the Iowa State Fair a couple of
I
times. Gotten a
couple of
pork chop
we
on a
go at least
stick.
once a year. We go at least once a year. I have never
Yes.
had as many items on a stick as I have had moving to
Mm,
Iowa, but a lot of
hmm.
them are actually really good. Like they had a
Yes.
sweet taco thing a couple years ago. Oh my gosh.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
So
Yep. I think the best thing that I have had at the Iowa State Fair on a stick, and this was probably about 10 years ago, I came for my high school reunion with my friends, and me and my parents went to the fair. And they had a double bacon wrapped corn dog with
ah,
a maple syrup reduction dipping sauce. Period. Tore it
ooh,
up. So good.
okay.
So good. I don't know if they have it anymore, but yeah, I mean, look, if you want to eat food that is mobile while you people watch, Iowa State Fair is the best place
Oh yes.
for
Oh
that. Yes,
yes.
absolutely. So, but no, we could talk all day because I have been telling people like I lived away from Iowa. I was gone for about 9 years. And when I lived in Wisconsin, I lived over in Wyoming for a bit and then down in
Nice.
Arizona, yeah, for work and everything. And I tell people all the time, Iowa, in my opinion, Des Moines is the best kept secret in the Midwest because people do not realize all of the things that actually go on in this city. So, and it's so much more than from when I was growing up and when I was a kid. So, yes, we will have to get together this summer and I will take you all around and show you all the things. So,
Please do. I've heard about
yes.
that the best list that they just
Hmm.
started doing this year, so I want to
Yep.
check that out too.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're a reader, we have, I think here in Central Iowa, 3 bookstores that are on the indie bookstore list. So
Nice.
got to check those out. So yeah, okay, no, we're not going to plug
Sorry.
all of the Iowa things right now, but and that's another conversation for another time. But what I really want to get into is your journey into becoming an author. So now I understand you're self-published, correct?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
So before we get into that, I want to take me back kind of where did this joy for writing come from? Do you used to write poems when you were little? Like, have you always had a journal? Kind of walk us through kind of the evolution of Glow becoming this amazing author.
So I have to start with the story that my mother always tells anybody who asks why did she write. When I was younger, apparently I used to sing a lot.
Okay.
And so my mom thought I would be a singer. The
Mm-hmm.
moment I learned how to write, and I didn't sing anymore. And she
Okay.
immediately realized I was creating words and poems and stories, just didn't know how to write them down yet. So
Okay.
I have been doing this my entire life. When we would go on vacations, I had journals. We had to have a brand new journal, brand new pencils, so I
Mm-hmm.
could write the entire time. I would
Mm-hmm.
write in school. I would write on bus. I would write in my room. I have been writing my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
It started with poetry. Sometimes it would be short stories. I have characters in my mind, currently writing a chapter book. I have these
Okay.
characters in my mind who are evolving with each chapter, and it is a passion. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot stress enough that it is a passion. It is an outlet, but it's a passion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in 2021, when my youngest son got mad at me for not letting him have ice cream for dinner, I wrote,
Fair.
"Good night, my blessing."
Okay.
I wanted my children to know that no matter what, I love them, but sometimes I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to tell you no.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And so
it
you
just,
said this is when you wrote Good Night, My Blessing, correct?
yes,
And okay,
yes,
that's the book that I read at work today. And I'm in my office and they're like, Emily, I'm like, just a minute, gosh, because I kind of like I was telling you, my nephews are 14 and 16. They don't want me to read to them, but I just thought that was really beautiful that in that moment, it's just like, I'm your parent. I have to do these things, but it doesn't mean that my love is any less for you.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, and then it just over the years, it has become, again, it's an outlet, but it's a passion. I have worked with kids half my life. So if I wasn't working with numbers, I was working with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so with kids, I would see the same faces, the same sad, downtrodden faces, them looking down, or I would hear their words. I'm hurt, I'm upset, I don't know who to talk to, I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared. All of that just evolved into me wanting to create tools and journals and books to say, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's give you what you need to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
so that is why GloRose Books is what it is. I have even more ideas coming out in the next few months.
Absolutely. And, before I get into my next question, I do just want to talk a little bit about just the importance of journaling. I really think that a lot of people, well, first of all, thanks to social media culture and having the right aesthetic, I think a lot of people get turned off by journaling because it doesn't look a certain way. When really all you need is a 50-cent composition book, a pen that you like, and a quiet space, and you just let it all out. So, talk to me a little bit about how journaling for you maybe helped you kind of deal with some of those emotions as a child and how you are kind of implementing that into your work now.
So as a child, it took a long time for me to find my verbal words.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was upset about something, I'm going to borrow a line from one of my favorite movies, word vomit
Mm.
is what would come out of my mouth. And
Yep.
it wasn't always correct. It wasn't always expressing what I was truly feeling or
Mm-hmm.
what I was upset about or what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
But when I wrote it down, it was so much more clear.
Right.
I could tell somebody exactly what was wrong, express my feelings in a way that they understood it, and also express what I needed to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it became a normal thing for me, whether I was writing a poem to express my feelings or just writing in my journal to get it out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
it's a very normal thing for me. I still journal to this day, and sometimes even to communicate, I'm married, so even to communicate with my husband,
Mhm.
communicate with my children, if I feel like it's just going to come out as word vomit,
Mhm.
I'll write
Yeah.
just to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Can we talk about this when you're done? And I encourage my children, my eldest son, I encourage him all the time. Write down how you feel if you can't say to me what's wrong.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
it's a clearer path. Sometimes it's just a clearer path, and it allows the receiver time to
Mhm.
reflect on what you've written too. A lot of times when we talk, it turns into yelling, screaming, or arguing because I want you to hear me, but they want you to hear them.
Yep.
But if you write it down, you sit with it,
Mhm.
it allows for a little bit more reflection, a little bit more time to
Absolutely.
answer. So yeah,
Absolutely. And I really think that that is just such a poignant thing to think about, especially like when I think about how I grew up, how, like my friends grew up. And I have an older sister. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. She passed in 2016. But I remember like as a kid, you know, having those feelings of like being sad and not really understanding why you're going through an emotion. And I just remember like kind of like saying to my parents, and no fault to them, our parents did the best they could,
they
but it's, well, what do you have to be sorry about? You have a roof over your head, you have food in the
did.
refrigerator, you ain't paying no bills, so you have nothing to be sad about. And so I just remember like as a kid, journaling was how I got all of that out, but I know not every kid had that. Is it important to you, especially for Black kids that might have grown up like we did in that type of household, to be leveraging these tools to really understand their feelings?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things I want our kids to know is that one, your feelings are valid
Mm,
and it's okay to feel them. But also, there are healthy ways to work through them. It's
mhm,
not, unfortunately, to your point. And again, our parents did the best they could. I love my parents, would not ask for anybody different.
mhm,
But sometimes they did kind of tell us to bury it deep.
yeah,
They kind of tell us to keep rolling with the punches. They kept telling us, hey, that's okay. Get up and keep on trucking. But
mhm,
sometimes you need to deal with what you're actually feeling before you take that next step on your journey,
mhm,
before you try again, before you give something else another chance.
mhm,
And so I absolutely I say this to all children, but especially to young Black children and especially to young Black boys, as I am raising two gentlemen.
mm,
Your feelings are valid and you need to feel them, express them, and work or deal with them.
right,
Do not bury them. Do not push them aside.
mhm,
They are relevant and they are important.
right. Absolutely. And again, especially, for our Black boys, we want to make sure that they understand their feelings, and that the way you are feeling has nothing to do with how much or how less of a man you are. It
Exactly.
has all to do with the humility that you put out in the world to show that you are human, you are going through these things. So
Exactly.
I think that that is incredibly important. And that's why I think your work um, is so important. So I want to ask next just about um, you incorporate activities in your books. And also, I want to say, so when you guys go to Glow's website, she has books for children, and then she also does have books for teenagers. So everything that will kind of shift a little bit in the language in those books. Definitely kind of grow with that child as they're becoming and going into adolescence and becoming teenagers. What was the significance of you adding activities like writing challenges or things to draw? What was kind of your motive for adding that, incorporating that into your books?
Specifically, the drawing, I'll start there. That was actually brought to my attention by a customer who bought a writing version of one of my books, and she said, "Well, I have a relative who likes to draw," and
Mhm,
it occurred to me, some kids do not communicate just with words. They sometimes communicate with images. So
mhm,
I actually have drawing versions of some of these books to allow those very kids to express themselves. But the other reason for the activities is sometimes it's the actions that
mhm,
also can provide a relief, a source of
mhm,
understanding, and a source of connection and connecting.
mhm,
So, for example, there's a book called You Don't Need the Likes Challenge Edition.
mhm,
And on TikTok a couple years ago, I'm sure plenty of people saw the TikTok challenges for schools. where
Mhm.
they were being very disrespectful and very rude and very wrong. And I said, wait a
Whew.
minute, why don't you write after my head slightly exploded? Um,
Listen, because here's the thing, real quick. So both of my parents are in education.
oh, wow.
So my dad is a retired teacher, but he's a full-time sub, and my mom is a teaching assistant. And my mom, specifically her district, she came back with a paper memo, like it was the 90s. And I was at the house, and it said, oh, on this day, teachers, please be aware of any suspicious activity. The challenge tomorrow is punch a teacher.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, cool. So either you're not going to work tomorrow or I need to come and make sure that these kids know Doretha is not getting hit under no circumstance. Like that was really wild. So you took that to and really just leveraged it as a way to create activities for children.
Exactly. Like some of the activities are now this one, it was a goofy nod to my eldest son. He wears his clothes backwards sometimes and he just does it to be weird. But it's okay. It's okay. So like one of them is that, or there's a pie day, a national pie day, so go have some pie.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was community activities like volunteering at a local soup kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Other ones were shopping at a thrift store.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how many wonderful clothes you can find at a thrift store,
Mm-hmm.
so you can be your best self without spending a whole lot of money. Some of us don't have it like that,
Right.
and I understand.
Yep.
So a lot of the challenges were meant to give the kids a sense of self, but also give them a sense of their family, sense
Mm-hmm.
of their community, sense of
Mm-hmm.
their just environment and enjoy life. But the biggest challenge of this book is you do not share any of it on social media. I actually put that in the book. Do not post this
Wow.
because
Okay.
it's meant for them to experience life and have positive experiences without the pressure of searching for a like.
Oh,
So yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I really love that how that incorporated because, I mean, I'm a millennial, so I was born in the 80s and I literally went through my adolescence all the way up. I don't think I got a cell phone until I was 19.
Yes. Yes.
So that whole, oh, I bought this top. I need to share it. Like, no, like you were excited to get new clothes back then because you had a new fit for school that nobody else saw, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, in the response, have you heard any responses to kids doing those challenges and, any feedback on how they felt about kind of creating those memories and not necessarily sharing them on social media?
So at the events I've gone to, I've actually had kids come up to my table and they're like, "Oh, I bought this book," and they'll point
Mm-hmm.
to "You don't need the likes challenge." And the mom will say, "We have actually had a lot of fun with this book because we just got to be goofy and silly and just have fun."
Mm-hmm.
And the kids did like it because again, these were kids who they didn't have to feel the pressure of going out to social media. Did their
Right,
friend like it? Did someone say yay? Did someone even give it some criticism or negativity? It was just enjoying the experience.
right.
So
That's
actually, that's
amazing.
actually one of my better sellers, if I may be
Mm-hmm.
frank. That one and Look I'm Mad are two of my better sellers on the journal side. On the
Okay.
book side, it actually is Good Night, My Blessing. Um, that is a tremendous favorite. I keep selling out of that one actually.
Listen, let me tell you something. So, of my friends, there's only two of us now that don't have kids. And at this point, I'm just like, all y'all need this book for your children. Or no, there's three of us, excuse me, that don't have children. I was like, all y'all, I need all your babies to have this book because it is just the sweetest thing that I have read. I mean, literally, like I got a toothache. It was so sweet. I absolutely
Oh,
loved
thank
it.
you.
Um, so of your books, so say you have all of these things and obviously, so are you seeing like more parents coming and buying these, or like when you set up, are you seeing more kids buying them? And if it is mostly parents, what are some things that like parents are kind of asking as they're looking to buy these books for their children?
So I would say it's actually a combination of both, depending on the event.
Mm-hmm.
From the children's standpoint, they'll see "Look, I'm Mad," or they'll see Gary and the Negative Dino, and they will immediately connect with that
Mm-hmm.
because they see the pictures or they see the topic and say, "Yes, I'm feeling some kind of way."
Mm-hmm.
They'll show it to their parents. "Mom, I think I need this," or "Mom, can you look at this?" Because again, they found a connection to the words, and then as I explain what it's about, the connection only grows because
Mhm.
we're talking about being worried, we're talking about being happy, mad, or sad, or a story that encourages them to hope, a story that tells them not to let their feelings get too big.
Mhm.
And so, from a kid's standpoint, they just like it because of the connection they feel to it.
Mhm.
But from a parent standpoint, they like it because of what there's something that's going on with their kids. And it's either confusion, frustration, sometimes anger, sometimes sadness, sometimes really big emotions, or sometimes not enough emotion. And
Mhm.
they can't get through to usually it's a teenager. They can't get through to that teenager or get that toddler to calm down with the really big emotions.
Mhm.
So then they go to My Shining Star, or they'll go to Look, I'm Mad, and try to work on that activity book to communicate. They'll ask questions about how this works, how they can use it to better a relationship or better communication.
Mhm.
And as they are listening to it more and more, they're like, yes, I think this is good. And even sometimes they'll say, do you have this version of the book or that version of the book?
Mhm.
Because they feel something that can help their kids,
Mhm.
but maybe they need a little tweak. It needs a little tweak.
Right.
So
Right.
it's it's definitely a book that a lot of people I come across, even those who don't buy, they look at it and say, this is necessary. This is needed. We need more of this.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. So, before we get into you talking about you being self-published, tell me a little bit about how you're engaging with the Black community and just the community in general with your books. Are you going into schools? Are you going into classrooms? I know I see you on the vendor circuit, and I'm pretty sure we're going to cross paths a lot this summer. But kind of tell me a little bit about how you're connecting and what that impact is doing for you as the author of these wonderful books.
So one of the most important things I got to do last year was I did get to go into several schools in the area to read a book called The Flag and Me.
Mm-hmm.
And that book is it's a very diverse book that talks about being brave, persevering, and having hope. But the reason that it was so important to me to go in these classrooms is because a lot of kids that look like me do not see people like me writing books. They do
Mm.
not know that they can write their ideas, that they can present their ideas and take it to the next level and dream big.
Right.
So when I would walk into the room, I would see young Black girls, young Black men or gentlemen, excuse me, girls
Mm-hmm.
and ladies, and they would look to me and they would say, "You wrote this?" And it would just be the cutest thing I ever heard. Yes, it would be the cutest thing I ever heard. But
I love it.
to their faces of just this light up enthusiasm, like she wrote this,
Yeah.
and I just think that is tremendously important to continue to stretch how they can see people in different paths in their lives. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, we don't have to do this anymore. We can do a million different things.
Absolutely. I mean, we have heard multiple times, Black people, we are not a monolith. There is not one way that we have to be. So I think that's great.
Exactly.
So how does that make you feel when you have when 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 kids understand representation? What does that do for you?
It's tremendously important to me. I want our kids to see that we are in everything and in everywhere. You may not always see that person in the very forefront of that talk show. It
Mhm.
might be the boss, but behind the boss, unfortunately, behind, maybe not always,
Mhm.
is a Black person, an
Mhm.
intelligent, a strong, a dynamic Black person who is striving for change or striving for differences or striving for that next height.
Mhm.
And so for our kids, keep going for that next height. Keep going, keep pushing the boundaries on
Yeah,
what anyone says you can or cannot do. It makes me
absolutely.
feel excited. One of the activities I did last summer, I went to a summer school program and I read the book.
Mhm.
But I also gave all the kids this little tiny piece of paper that they folded up and told them
Mhm.
to write their own story. And
Okay.
so out of that, I had kids saying they wanted to be president. I had kids saying they wanted to be teachers, dentists. I had some kids
Mhm.
that said they wanted to be authors. Some kids said they wanted to be like Sonic the Hedgehog or a superhero, and that's
I
okay.
mean, and it's a vibe, but really,
It's a
reality
vibe.
will hit them at some point.
But who knows? We could have a Tony Stark in one of those. If
Hmm.
anyone knows Tony Stark, he makes the Iron Man suit. But
Yeah,
who knows? We could have an Iron Man in
yeah.
that
Or we
room.
could have a
So
kid that is a game developer that works on Sonic 19. Like, who knows?
yes, yes, and
Yeah,
so it just seeing how excited they were to say, "I want to be this when I grow up and that when I grow up." I I, I loved it. It was amazing.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And we definitely need more people doing that work, and especially like at a younger age. I'm really fortunate. I get to work with kids that are in middle school and high school on exploring their opportunities in higher ed, but also making sure that they know what they need to do to get to high school graduation and staying focused. um, and I just think that at times we forget that those kids that are younger, we need to let them be kids, but we also need to let them dream and kind of
Yes,
have those ideas. And the more that they start to understand their feelings, they're really going to be able to just start developing some of that emotional intelligence a lot sooner in life rather than later.
yes,
Because some of the meltdowns I have had, even at my big age of 38, I'm like, man, does this go back to my childhood? Do I need to talk about this in therapy next week? So it's definitely giving students and giving kids a one up. So kudos to you on that. I do want to change gears because I feel like in the last, I would say probably 4 years, and I really think that there was a big push for this during COVID because we were all at home.
hmm
Um, we are seeing a lot more authors self-publishing. Talk to me about why you decided to go that route. Were you shopping your books at publishing houses? Kind of, what was the tipping point that said, you know what, I'm just going to do this myself and move it forward?
So the first two books I ever published was Goodnight My Blessing and Flag and Me.
Hmm.
And I did go through a publishing company that helps authors publish. It wasn't traditional publishing where
Hmm.
they buy the rights from you and then you get a cut of the royalties as they sell. It
Hmm.
was a house that was meant to help publish the book and then provide you with copies, and then also you would buy extra stuff to market.
Hmm.
I won't say the name of the house, but when I went through them, it just became, within the first year, it became very, very cumbersome. It was hard to sometimes communicate with them.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, they would offer me this program to promote without any results.
Hmm.
While they did not own the copyright to my book, they owned the ISBN number, which is the number on the back over the
Hmm.
barcode.
Yeah.
Um, they owned the number, so they technically could do whatever they wanted to with my book.
Right.
And on top of that, the royalties, they would sell my book at a very high price. My book, my stories, I believe at the time were actually selling for about 18.95,
Hmm.
and I thought that was incredibly too high.
Hmm.
They disagreed, but out of that 18.95, I would see like $1.25.
Okay. Yeah, that's not
And
a one up.
and so after about a year, I started looking at other ways to do this myself, and I said, okay, I need to figure out something else because this just isn't working.
Hmm.
Newer titles were going to cost 3 times the amount of money. Still did not have the ownership of my ISBN. No. So I
Hmm.
finally decided to just do self-publishing. And self-publishing right now I do print through Amazon, but
Okay.
the ISBNs of my books I own. So if I ever decide I do not want to print with them, they can't the code on my phone on my book, excuse me, it still belongs to me.
Okay. That's right.
I can also take that and I can, if I want to walk into a store tomorrow and say I want to sell my book in your store because it is my ISBN, I can sell it in the store.
Hmm.
And then the copyright, it actually was not hard to get the copyrights for my books at all. So I have
Wow.
all the copyrights for my books. I actually produced a document, and at the encouragement of some wonderful people I networked at the vendor event this week at Power,
Okay.
uh, I may actually create a very easy book to just say, this is what you can do so you don't make the same mistakes I made. I made a
Yeah.
lot of mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and what the Glow is referring to the Power Summit that we did through Lady Like Des Moines, and it's their annual summit. And I mean, it is just an incredible opportunity for Black women to get together in fellowship, learning, educating, and just encouraging, empowering, all of those things. And I think one of the things, and I will say that maybe this is a blessing of social media and of YouTube and TikTok, is that if you want to figure out how to do something yourself, there are so many people that have already said, you know what, do this because I did it. Don't do this because I did it, and do this instead. Right.
Yes.
And I think that that's so important because we are like, there's no, like, gatekeeping is frowned upon now.
Yes.
Like, there's no sense in withholding information and then making the masses work 10 times hard or charging them outrageous
Yes.
prices to get information, and that is so awesome because, when you can learn from someone's mistake, you are essentially giving someone else the one up that you might not have had, but you're also sharing in the wealth because there's plenty of room for all of us to be
Exactly.
successful. Yeah.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
say to
So,
people all the time, there is more than enough out there. We do not need to
hmm
no, that's not necessary. I've sent this document to several authors who were just starting out,
hmm
and some of them did not have their own ISBNs. I told them exactly how they could get it. Um, some of them, like me, had gone to the publishing house and spent thousands upon thousands of dollars and saw very little return.
hmm
And so I freely share this information.
Yeah. And I think that is just that impact, I feel like, is really where, remember what they said at the conference, mentorship is so important. You know what I mean? And knowing where to go to get that guidance, but also being that resource, I think, is really important. So let's talk a little bit. Now, I don't want you to give away everything right now, especially because I know you're working on something, but, you know, give me three things that someone that does want to self-publish. And this could really be, whether, well, here's what you need to think about when, you're thinking about what kind of book you want to write, or you already have a book and here are a few things you just need to look at. Kind of give me the three steps that you would encourage someone to take wanting to self-publish that you wish you would have taken ahead of time.
One of the biggest steps would be Fiverr. If you've ever used this website, fiverr.com, I published some books without editing them.
Mm.
That is not a good thing. So I learned the hard way that Fiverr is an amazing website, an amazing tool to find. If you want to do children's books, you can find illustrators.
Mm.
No matter what book you do, you can find proofreaders. Some of those proofreaders will even give you some insight on your topic. I found an amazing proofreader editor, and she's worked on just about every book I've done.
And
And
are these like freelance people?
yes, so
That's
you will have
awesome.
to spend a little bit of money, but depending on what you
hmm
ask for, it can actually be pretty reasonable. Pretty
hmm
reasonable to do. And the artwork is some of the artwork on my books is absolutely amazing.
It's
I love it.
adorable.
It is
Adorable.
my newest book, the artwork in it. I looked at it, I was like, and so my eyes couldn't see. I was just like, because I had gone through two other illustrators through different means,
hmm
finding them on different means besides Fiverr, and none of them could capture what I was truly, truly going for. And
hmm
finally, I went back to Fiverr, and again, my eyes was
Yeah.
so
Yep.
yes, Fiverr would be the first one. The second one would be to go through Broker, Bowker, and
Okay.
these are the people who house the ISBN numbers for your books. My books did not have their own ISBN numbers for the first year and a half.
Okay.
Those numbers belong to somebody else. Actually,
Mm,
maybe even 2 years. And
okay.
I didn't realize that with it not belonging to me, I can't, if I go into a Barnes and Noble,
hmm
into a Target, I can't sell it. It belonged to Amazon.
Okay.
So I could only sell it on Amazon. So that was probably the biggest mistake I made. And I learned the hard way not to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The second mistake would be copyright. There
Okay.
is a website very easy to find to copyright your products and to copyright your books. Um, I did not. So the original copyright for the first two books were easy to do. The company I hired had done those. But when I continued to publish, some of the books I did not copyright upfront.
Okay.
Thankfully, nothing happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, that work could have been stolen by somebody else
Right. Right.
if they had really wanted to do so. So before you even put that book on the website, on the shelf,
Mm-hmm.
make sure you have submitted the copyright. Even if you don't have the letter of copyright,
Mm-hmm.
submit the copyright, because most of the time it's going to go through with very little problem. And because you submitted it, there's still the paper trail. So if someone else comes up to submit the same copyright, yours
Right.
got there first.
Right. That's
So
really
yes,
important. That's a good
very
one,
important.
and that's definitely not something I ever thought about, was copyright, like, and why that is so important, because you want to get credit for your work. And unfortunately, I mean, theft is rampant in so many different art communities. Like, I'm a diamond painter, and so art theft
Nice.
is ridiculous. I mean, and they really want to they really want licensed work. So then that artist is getting credit and they're getting a monetized profit from that artwork,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's just crazy where, you'll see this beautiful piece and you go to Temu and you'll see the same piece for like a
Yes.
fraction of the cost. But it's also lower
Yes.
quality and all those other things, and it's really terrible. But I think those three gems are just are very, very important. I can imagine that some of our listeners will definitely maybe have that idea of, well, I think I want to publish a book, I think I want to do this, and things like that. So that's fantastic. So last question. So we've talked a lot about your journey with writing. We've talked about, your passion for making sure that kids, teens understand their feelings, and that parents are also giving their kids that avenue to really explore those things and be able to support them. We've talked about publishing and, how and why you decided to start doing it yourself. And the other thing that we did touch on is just making sure that we're not gatekeeping and withholding information. So for someone like yourself that's been doing this since 2021, if we have a listener that is wanting to figure out the best way to express themselves through writing, through artwork, through, leveraging their words, what piece of advice do you have for them in doing so, in getting to that point where they don't have word vomit?
I would say deep breath
Mm.
and just put the pen to the paper.
Yes.
I know a lot of times we want to one of the biggest things that I've also encountered is that we want to overthink it because we want it to be perfect. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't need to be. Your words, your feelings, they don't need to be perfect. They can
Mm-hmm.
be messy. They can be complicated. They can be a couple of
Mm-hmm.
issues of a
Yeah.
magazine. No, I'm just kidding. But it doesn't have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
The picture doesn't have to be perfect. The words don't have to be perfect. The meaning doesn't have to be perfect. Just put it down first
Mm-hmm.
and then go back and visit it later, because the biggest part is getting it out of here
Mm-hmm.
so you can really get a feel for what you're trying to say on that page.
I love that. I love that. Deep breath, just put the pen to the paper. I love that.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Glo, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I feel like we could have literally done 3 episodes on things to do in Iowa and the Midwest,
Yes.
journaling, and
Yes.
how to publish. We literally could have done that. But this was just a really fantastic conversation. And I really hope our listeners, get something out of it that will not only help them, but also maybe extending to their children as well. So what I'd like to do right now is basically roll out the red carpet, and you tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can find your products, and maybe even a few teasers on some things that you're working on right now. So the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Miss Emily. And I want to say thank you for having me. This is an amazing experience, great conversation. And again, we need to meet up so we can go check out more of Des Moines.
Yes.
Clearly, I need to learn more what's
Yes,
out
I will take you on a tour of Des Moines. Absolutely. I have no problem doing that.
here. That would be awesome. So if anyone is interested, my books are on glorosebooks.com, and it's spelled GLOROSE BOOKS.com. My books do center around helping our children from ages 2 to 18 with their emotional growth and development. Specifically, I am focusing on death right now.
Okay.
And you can check out my TikTok, which will feature some more information about books to come. But I do have one storybook about coping with a loss and two activity books about coping with a teenager or a younger child losing someone very important to them.
Okay.
After COVID, after school shootings, after family accidents, after news, everything our kids are seeing on the news, we
Mm-hmm.
cannot continue to believe that they are not dealing with a loss in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the projects that I'm currently working on. Future projects will focus on different types of families. Um, Everyone born into a family is a beautiful thing, but some of us are not lucky enough to keep the people we are born to.
Mm-hmm.
But that family is still important. Foster,
Mm-hmm.
I myself was adopted by my stepfather, and I could not ask for a different dad. Wouldn't want to. So
Absolutely.
I will be focusing on that going forward.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, yes, and social media, where can we follow you?
Ah, GloRose Books is also on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.
Okay.
Uh, my TikToks this month will focus on death. I believe next month I'm going to go back to focusing on early emotions for our younger children, called My Shining Star. It's one
Okay.
of two of the activity books that I focus on for our younger kids. But going into the summer months is a
Mm-hmm.
good time to work on emotions with our younger kids. So.
Awesome. Good, good. Well, yes, and I will have all of this information for everybody in the show notes so you know where you can find Glow at. Glow, thank you again for your time. This was a fantastic conversation. And please, 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 I promise I am going to have you back to talk about a few other things as well. So that's definitely going to happen. So, all right, guys. So, what we're going to do, we're going to take a short break and then I'll be back with the episode reflection. So, I'll be right back. Deep breath. Just put the pen to the paper. You know, that episode with Glow was amazing for so many reasons. Before I get into it, though, I do want to thank Glow so much for coming on the podcast and not only talking about her journey and her experience here in Iowa, but also her passion for writing and for making sure that our kids, children, have avenues to express themselves, whether it be through writing, through drawing, but really being able to understand and process their feelings. You know, I remember as a kid loving to write all of the time, and I would write when I was mad, I would write when I was sad. But, you know, we did definitely touch on the fact that, you know, when you were a kid, sometimes you really weren't able to express those feelings. And again, no shade to our parents. They were doing the best they could. But I just think right now with everything going on in the world and how difficult it is to kind of be able to express your feelings a little bit, sometimes you need a little help. And that's really where I feel like Glow's books are really going to have a really awesome benefit for the kids that get to experience them. So I will be sure to also have all of her information in the show notes for you. I think the other thing that I really took away from this podcast episode is the fact that she not only had a journey and an experience of being self published, but also she shared some really great gems for us, y'all, about how to self publish your own books and your own writing. You know, I'm really excited to see this document that she's going to put out, but, you know, letting us know about the editing website, places where you can get your ISBN numbers, and a website making sure that you have copyright for your material. I mean, those are just such invaluable things. And I know some of you guys are out there and you're wanting to publish your own books, whether it be a coloring book, a planner, really anything like that. I know for myself, I have like a dream of doing one of two things. Well, no, doing one thing really, but I've always wanted to do like a prompt planner journal type deal because I love to write and I love to plan, right? So, you never know. Maybe this is something that I can kind of start looking into and seeing what's going on, and just really manifesting what I want to do with my creativity. So, I highly recommend, though, that you guys, again, follow Glow and really start to think about what it is that you want to do if you want to be an entrepreneur. And then another thing, if you have never tried journaling, I highly recommend it. Okay. All you need is a pen, paper, and a quiet space. That's literally it. And just get it all out. So, again, that's going to be today's episode. For next week's episode, we are going to be talking about mental health. I am so excited to have Brianne Ward, founder of Forward Counseling right here in the Des Moines area, share her story, not only about her experience growing up in Iowa. You guys are going to hear too. So, I mean, you guys know I went to Roosevelt, right? Okay. Yeah. Go Rough Riders. She went to Hoover and I completely butchered her high school in the intro. But you know what? It's all love. Anyway, though, the episode's going to be fantastic though, because she's going to really take an opportunity to really talk about her own personal mental health journey and what thoughts and encouragement she may have for some of you listening that might want to go into some type of counseling or therapy, or really what you could be doing to prioritize your mental health. So, that is going to be today's episode. Again, all of Glow's information will be in the show notes. If you want to know more about me, I am on Instagram at Black Girl Iowa. I also do have a blog where I do post just random tidbits about things that I'm kind of going through and enjoying right now. That is blackgirliowa.com. There is also a page on my website where if you have a question, please ask it and it will more than likely be answered on a future episode. Not more than likely, it will be answered on a future episode. So again, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to tune in to next week's episode with Brianne. That will drop next Monday at 11 a.m., not a minute early and not a minute late. All right, y'all. So everybody take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and I will see you guys, or you guys will hear me on the next episode. Bye, y'all.